Hi, everybody. I think everything is working. All right. So today is day 982 days, 982. And if you're new, thank you so much for tuning in. It has been 982 days since Richard vanished from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. Um, Distinguished honor graduate from basic training in AIT, and also award winner, 3 AAMs in the first 14 months, great achievement. Also, also the very first CONUS DES 1 missing soldier in U.S. Army history under the new Vanessa Guillen absent soldier flowchart. And I'm going to begin this with a TikTok. I need somebody help, not just Oh, I have that on. Let me see. I'm going to begin it with a TikTok because we are having a vigil for Richard on the 1000th day. We've been organizing it, and it will be a prayer line. So we'll try to get some people together. We're worried about safety because listen to this. Maybe I should begin with this. This is, let's start it over. This is Denisha, and she was worried about her safety. Yeah, in the military. And we know that Richard. Am I a soldier of the cross, a follower of the Lamb? And shall I fear to own his cause, or blush to speak his name? Yeah, so this TikTok, and if you don't know that hymn, it's really worth listening to because I think it strengthens you in our everyday life. That's for sure. And it has really strengthened me in this doing these live streams under threats, under being harassed and bullied, under so many lies. And this is not just coming from regular folks. Okay, regular folks have been absolutely great. Team Find Richard Halliday, absolutely great. This is the weaponization of our agencies. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because the harassing has come from the DOD, has come from the FBI, has come from the DOJ. And you can say, what do you mean the harassing has come from Representative Veronica Escobar? Okay. And you'll say, well, how is that? Because, they have this charm school. They do things very politically. But as I told First Sergeant Jay Paulin, I say, what you're saying is so violent, because it goes against everything what the United States Army should stand for. The be all you can be, okay, be all you can be missing, be all you can be not knowing where you're at, be all you can be raped, be all you can be sold illegal drugs or live in a marketplace for illegal drugs, the barracks. Be all you can be, get everything blown off because you're left behind in Afghanistan by your leadership. They don't understand women and children first. They don't understand the captain leaves last. They don't understand um, the leave no soldier behind, an army of one, the Medal of Honor ethos, the Good Samaritan. They don't understand that. The culture, the training has developed into a foreign ideology. Okay. Um, because, like I've said for a long time, 44 four-star generals are absolute criminals right now. They're absolute criminals. Why do we need 44 four-star generals to begin with right now when we only have 1.3 million service members? World War II, we had 13 million. We only had 7 four-star billets. Now we have 44 four-star billets. And we have every program being a failure, even being that bloated, even being that top heavy. Everything is a failure because they're serving foreign and domestic enemies. They're serving a foreign ideology. They're leaving our soldiers behind. They're leaving our equipment behind. They're leaving our technology behind. They're leaving our edge behind. They're leaving our country behind. They're forsaking our country. They're forsaking our service members. They're forsaking all the volunteer sons and daughters. They're forsaking our veterans. They're forsaking everything that they should be defending. They're forsaking the Constitution. And we have these women that volunteer to serve, and they are not cared for. They are raped, and when they're raped, they get harassed. Asia Graham, her rapist, was put 2 doors down from her because she wanted to report him, and that's what the captain did to her. And I don't know if that captain was fired. I don't know if that captain was even arrested, even investigated. Right now, the military has a different ideology. It has a political ideology. It has weaponized itself against the very people that it's supposed to be defending, the very land that it's supposed to be defending, and it's polluting everything. It's polluting our Department of Defense. It's polluting then our representatives, because then they have to shuffle around and find who they are going to serve, who's going to pay for their reelection. And so they are left defenseless, and then they get flipped off by the Secretary of the Army, like Senator Ted Cruz did. And Senator Ted Cruz is an elected official. A senator has a very high ranking in our hierarchy. So the Secretary of the Army is a subordinate of a senator by 23 ranks. And yet, Christine Wormuth, I don't know who she is. I don't know how many wars she's fought in. She flipped off Senator Cruz when he had an amazing letter. It was very respectful. It had very thought out questions, and yet she could flip him off. She is his subordinate, and he had no recourse because he's left defenseless. And we understand how he feels because we have been left defenseless. Where is Bill Hicks? I just learned his name. Where is he? He is the Attorney General for the western area of Texas, right? For that area of El Paso, he's the state Attorney General. Where is he? Where is he? He's supposed to be for victims' rights. We've absolutely have been victims in this. We have screenshot over screenshot over screen. We have a whole website that you can see. We had our so-called liaison participate in bullying us and harassing us. There was no meeting about the harassments. It was all hush-hush because, you see, the people that were harassing us, we believe were ordered to harass us because first lieutenants don't harass the family of a missing soldier that was serving under him. You don't have, and he's a West Pointer, y'all. You don't have the PAO team member for the general harassing the family of a missing soldier, especially the first CONUS DUS 1 missing soldier under the new Vanessa Guillen absent soldier flowchart when you had 3 beheadings there at Fort Hood, Fort Stewart, Fort Bragg. When you have very, very violent crimes going on at the same time as you have a missing soldier, and you had another missing soldier, Gregory Morales, and they declared him a deserter for months. Come to find out, when they were looking for Vanessa Guillen, they found his remains. He had been murdered. This is at the same time that Richard went missing. Yet there was no urgency. There was just a conspiracy, a colluding, and a cover-up, because they did not want another Vanessa Guillen. They did not want another Vanessa Guillen at Fort Bliss. They didn't want what happened at Fort Hood to happen at Fort Bliss. And they had learned a lot at Fort Hood, because at Fort Hood they allowed Texas EquiSearch to search for Vanessa. They're the ones that found the melted pelican case that her body was stuffed in, somehow contorted, somehow, you can't really put a dead body in a trunk unless you're doing some things to the body. And she had been bludgeoned. She had been suffering sexual harassment. We heard even other worse things, and then her body cut apart and burned and put into a foxhole, and then laid lime on her, laid concrete on her. You have to have sand for cement to make the concrete. Okay. I've poured a lot of concrete in my life. My sons, my husband will, my daughters, our family would absolutely contest to that. So I understand what it took to do what they did to her. And yeah, I have a lot of questions. But this was all going on at the same time that Richard went missing. And the thing is, we knew that there were leaks, right, in the case. And then in January of 2022, we had a CID FBI report that gave us the names of who was leaking. And that would be Special Agent CID from the CID office there, Tavita Nusa, to Leilani Hart, the mother. She's a veteran serving under Major General Clem Coward, who retaliated heavily for Richard unjustly. We're trying to find that out. But she's the mother of First Lieutenant Dallas Hart, who's now out. Okay, so he goes green to gold and he gets out. So it's, and he is serving also under Major General Clem Coward. And these files, we get the CID number, we get the FBI number for these files because they had been leaked. Okay, they had been leaked. We get, because who has their CID file number? Who has their FBI file number, right? And so these had been leaked. And so we found out that they had been notarized. We found boots on the ground. This is an update. This is why this live stream is called an update and 1,000 letters. Update meaning for people to understand that we have never stopped having boots on the ground in the El Paso area. We have continuously, I was born at White Sands. My dad was ADA. I went to MacArthur. I went to Fort Bliss Elementary School, MacArthur Elementary School, and I went to Bassett Middle School. I understand, my husband has history there at Fort Bliss. So we've had boots on the ground. And now those leaks are important because the leaks were Richard's file, many files, but Richard was one of those files. And what happened is those case numbers were developed. We were told then after we heard about the leak of the files that happened. The hearing about the leak happened in January of 2022. So now we have discovered, no thanks to Bill Hicks, no thanks to Jeffrey Downey, the FBI right there in El Paso. Okay, where is he? Where is he? He should make himself available to us. But no, they've been weaponized against us, you see. We should be on first name basis with Jaime Esparza, the federal attorney general there. Bill Hicks took his place. Bill Hicks hasn't been elected in. He'll be up for election. But when Jaime Esparza was appointed and approved by Senator Ted Cruz, I wonder if they talked about Richard. They should have talked about Richard. And I wish that Senator Cruz, I don't know if he was left defenseless even with the attorney general there for the Western District of Texas, because Jaime Esparza should have called us. He should have called my husband. He should have called us. He should have told us about all the programs that are available to us to help us find our son. And there are, and then of course, Bill Hicks with the victims help, victims advocacy. He should have helped us too. And of course, Jeff Downey, being the head of the FBI, he should have helped us too. And then you have the border attorney USA there, Gregory McDonald. He, of course, should have helped us, especially when the father-in-law of the Lieutenant Colonel Bugado in the G3 of the 32nd ADCOM walked into a Dollar General right there at Fort Bliss when we were there. This is in October of 2020. And said that he was FBI. He was with the FBI. That means he was an FBI informant. And that, and they could check that out. They could check that out because we know who he is. It took us months to figure it out. No thanks to Jeffrey Downey. Jeffrey Downey didn't help us figure out who this father-in-law is. We just called him the Dollar General man. But now we know he's the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bugado in the G3 of the 32nd ADCOM, which is Richard's command. Richard's command. First Lieutenant Dallas Hart's command. Leilani Hart's previous command. Okay, because she's also a veteran, 15 years. And G3 is like the wedding planners. It's not the musicians. It's not the florist. It's not the photographer. It is the wedding planner. They know what's going on. They're the ones that make the op boards. The operational orders that we didn't get for Task Force Find Richard Halliday. They just staged that. And that means that General McConville should be arrested. And this is my opinion. And I know that I'm biased because of suffering through this and seeing my son be so disregarded. But he should be arrested. And I think we need to put the death penalty squarely on the table for discussion here. Because you're talking about our service members here. You're talking about our country here. You're talking about treason and betrayal. And this is just a little part of the huge criminal iceberg that is in front of us, what the DOD has committed, what our agencies have committed. Because now we're fearing for our safety. They sit in secure buildings with everything. We have given them everything. Security, monetarily, and also physically. We give them any kind of equipment that they need. We give them beautiful offices. We give them beautiful homes. We give them all the transportation they need. We also give, including helicopters, everything. This is luxury. And if you know anything about, okay, so we give them everything. We give them our trust. We also provide them with our volunteer sons and daughters. And they have betrayed all of those gifts, all of the prayers, their position, their duty. They have forgotten. They've forgotten who they are, what they're supposed to be doing. And it's leaving Denisha feeling unsafe. And she's not the only one. Richard felt unsafe. 5 days before he went missing, he went and bought a pistol. He had a rifle. But he needed to buy a pistol for some reason. And Hannah was like, Mom, he felt unsafe. He was fearing for his life. And so now, with all the bullying we have had, getting some leverage now with these leaked files and also the numbers of the files being leaked and then turning those in, we have now the Office of the IG contacting us officially that they will fully look into this, because here is the kicker. Okay? And I hope everyone's paying attention, and I think you should really even write this down, because sometimes you write it down, you put it up in the wall, and you're like, oh my gosh, now I see what's going on. That's why we have this, all of our charts around us, because when we put it up, we see things differently. We see things more clearly. And this is the kicker. Those files that were fortified with many other files, including Richard's file, so we are told, was notarized. They were notarized. And they were notarized on the 22nd of July, 2020. So we know that Richard put in the Child Protective Service complaints. We know that he handed in sex videos. So we know that the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday. We know that. We know that he was fearing for his life. We have videos. So on the 22nd of July, the CID and the FBI, Jeff Downey, knew that there was a CID file and an FBI file with major complaints of child abuse and worse. They knew these leaked files. They knew that it came from Leilani Hart. They knew that there was an involvement with Tavita Nusa. They knew all that the day before Richard went missing. So all of this time, it has been colluding and conspiracy and the weaponization of our DOD, our military, Richard's unit, yes, Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe. And they know it. The intimidation even coming out of the PAO at the very beginning. They know it. They've committed huge crimes, in my opinion. Huge crimes. And from the very beginning, they were like, oh no, we have to cover this up because we cannot have another Vanessa Guillen. We cannot have another Fort Hood. And this had to come from uh, really top people. And we know that it was totally in shambles, the DOD, because we know that President Trump told the generals to withdraw from Syria and they ignored him. So the generals had gone rogue. The generals are serving foreign and domestic enemies instead of our elected president of the United States. And I don't know what they're doing right now. But I know I've been looking this up. They were going rogue. And so we have to fear our lives now because we don't have the security that Jeff Downey has, that Jaime Esparza has, that Bill Hicks has, that Gregory McDonald has, and the others. There's others. And also that Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe has, and General Mealy, and General McConville, and General Garrett. We don't have that kind of security. We have to fear for our lives now, even if we want to do a prayer line vigil on the 1000th day for Richard Halliday, our son, who is the very first CONUS Death One missing soldier in U.S. Army history that should be on the news, in my opinion. That should be on the news. And so when we, in 2022, January of 2022, received the information that there was a CID and FBI complaint about special agents from the CID there, Tavita Nusa in Fort Bliss, to Leilani Hart. When we received that information, the next month, February, started on our Team Find Richard Halliday hotline. We started receiving vile and vulgar messages. And they continued until the end of May. And they were really bad, and they came from different numbers. And by the end of May, we decided that we were going to try to find a way, even though they were untraceable, untraceable numbers, not traceable numbers, we were going to try then to trace these numbers. Because if the NSA can do it, people say you can't do it, you can't do it. Yeah, you got to put your mind to things. There's, you can't believe the narratives. That's why I don't believe in the germ theory. I was questioning it at the beginning of this whole thing because how they were shutting down, weaponizing our agencies. I couldn't believe it, to shut down just roundtable discussions about how we were going to handle what was going on. You had our entire economy, our entire world economy at stake here, which means that it mentally and physically could harm. Just by destroying an economy, you can create so much crime, so much extra fatalities on top of any kind of health crisis. And they were shutting down the discussion, which is crimes against humanity. And that came directly from our DOD, y'all. Our DOD backed it all up. They backed it up. They funded it. Funded most of it. Yeah. So instead of defending our Constitution, they were taking our rights away. And the other day, this last week, and I believe this is why the indictment came out for President Trump, and because it was a disaster. The Secretary of Defense, Austin, His testimony was a disaster. It was so apparent that this man is so inhumane and so cold-blooded that he has no, and so anti-American, so anti-human, so anti-soldier, so anti-service member that he does not need to be in that seat at all. We do not need to give him any power. One of my favorite movies is Seven Samurai, the original. There's, of course, the Magnificent Seven that is a takeoff, a Western takeoff. I think they made it even a new one lately from the Seven Samurai. But the Seven Samurai is a black and white Japanese film that is, if you haven't seen it, it is absolutely magnificent. And there's something very similar to Europe and to the United States and Japan, and that is we come from a feudal past. Meaning, well, not so much the United States, but we have that element because so many Europeans settling here. But Europe and Japan very much have a feudal past. And what do I mean by that? Well, you had the destruction of the Roman Empire, and you had these few. There weren't so many of them. Of these Vandals, of these barbarians coming through the European nations. And just like in Japan, they would have their Vandals going through, I don't know what you'd call them, going through and stealing, raping, killing, kidnapping the peoples. And so they couldn't farm. You'd farm, and all of a sudden you'd have these bandits coming and killing you, raping you, stealing from you, everything. And so what they did is in Seven Samurai is this village who was tired of being bullied hired 7 samurais. And that is how Europe, they hired knights. And, as the years went by, and they made covenants with each other, they made their deals. You keep us safe and let us, and we'll pay you for that. And we can live. We can live in safety. And the problem is with that is with time, they forget Joseph. And what do I mean by that? If you know the Bible, you understand that Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers. Through, oh my goodness, a magnificent story. You can read it. He became, through slavery, moving up by the grace of God to the second highest position beside the Pharaoh of Egypt. That when the lean years came, when the famine came, his father and brother looked to Egypt for food because Joseph had stored grain in silos, stored food in silos, and so people from all over were going to Egypt. You have to understand the Egyptian delta, the Nile Delta, is the most fertile ground. The last time I read, the most fertile ground in the world. And so if they're not messing with the waterways, which they do, but they could grow, and they grew in plenty, and they stored it. And when the famine came, that's where people went. And Joseph, to make a long story short, Joseph saved Egypt. And his father and all the Hebrews, that's how they ended up in Egypt. And after years and years, Joseph was forgotten, and the Egyptian pharaohs looked at the Hebrews and were afraid because they were growing in numbers. And that's the story of Noah where the Pharaoh wanted to kill all of the firstborn males of the Hebrews, and not Noah, I'm sorry, Moses. And Moses was hidden in the basket because he was slated to be killed. So that's really the story of Moses and how the Hebrews became slaves in Egypt, and that Moses had to be saved. Grew up, the princess of the Egyptians found him and raised him to be an Egyptian prince. That's how that all came to be. And so to say Joseph was forgotten, I think in our DOD, Joseph has been forgotten. I think Washington has been forgotten, and I mean George Washington. I mean our forefathers. I mean our Constitution. I mean our rule of law. Our rule of law. Moses has been forgotten. And they have sold us out for a foreign ideology to service foreign and domestic enemies. And that's why when Richard went missing, when Richard joined the Army, he was so excited and he aspired and he went in with gusto, and he was the Distinguished Honor Graduate, #1 soldier, landed on top. I still have the program. He was won $500 for being the Distinguished Honor Graduate, and you can watch the video of basic training and AIT. And his first lieutenant said he didn't care if someone was a Distinguished Honor Graduate. He said that in one of the bullying messages. You have to, it shows you that this first lieutenant that was trained at West Point, which is really concerning, is that he's looking for the lowest denominator. He's looking for the blow. And so even when they tried to smear Richard to make him look like he was not an ideal soldier, they still didn't care. They still didn't care. So what was going on? He's a yellow Interpol. He's not a red Interpol. He's a yellow Interpol. After 80 subpoenas and warrants, try that. Try having 80 subpoenas and warrants, being that combed through, your life combed through, scrutinized on every level at the age of 20 years old, right? At the age of 21 years old. Scrutinized 80 subpoenas and warrants that had to come through Jaime Esparza. You see, we don't know who the judge was. And yet he didn't even bother to call us. Yeah. Oh, it's all through the CID. Wait a minute. We have Tavita Nusa being the special agent in the CID who's supposed to be looking for Richard, leaking Richard's file, putting through a CID. And the kicker is that there's a notary on these complaints of the worst type of child abuse you can imagine. And they're not concerned. This is a botched investigation, y'all. Totally botched, with conspiracy and colluding. And I want to talk about that too, because I have mentioned weeks ago about Santa Clara, California, and how those phone calls that we traced, and we didn't let the narrative, oh, you can't trace it, deter us from trying. And we tried, and we did it. And those traces are very interesting because one of the traces led to Santa Clara, California. But because we've had boots on the ground, because we have Team Find Richard Halliday, we don't have the FBI helping us. We don't have the Attorneys USA that we vote in, that we pay for their security, we pay for their whole livelihood, we pay for their retirement, we pay for their fancy cars, for their fancy buildings, for their air condition, for many lunches, probably golf. We pay for all of that. Okay? Especially in the DOD too. You don't see anybody not having a good time on golf courses, in the military, or at the Rod and Gun Club. We pay for all of that. We didn't get help from them. We got help from Team Find Richard Halliday, regular citizens that are paying the taxes, that are working hard. And they're the ones that gave us the information that, these are leaked, and that the El Paso Police Department, that's supposed to be part of this task force Find Richard Halliday, but we know now that was also staged. They're colluding, they're conspiring. They might be colluding and conspiring while they're playing golf, while they're playing pool, while they're having a steak dinner, while they're in their air-conditioned secured offices. They're colluding and conspiring how not to find Richard's remains, or not to give us Richard's remains, because you have the father-in-law saying that the FBI found Richard's remains in Juarez, Mexico. And you have them conspiring and everything. And, they're very close to NATO. So you have Santa Clara, California, where you have the FBI there. You have the FBI right there in Santa Clara, California, because that is Silicon Valley. That's where Stanford is. That's where all of this colluding, conspiring against all the narratives on Facebook and YouTube and you name it, Instagram, whatever. They were conspiring against narratives. That means against millions of people. And that came out of Santa Clara, California. And so you had government people that did not want another Vanessa Guillen story. Government people that went to Santa Clara, California with bills in their hands and said, hey, Facebook, hey, YouTube, hey, Instagram, hey, whatever, Twitter, hey, Twitter, we don't want this out there. So you better censor it. You better bury it. You better shadow ban it. You better find a way in all of your, if we can find a way to trace these vile and vulgar phone messages that we were getting on these untraceable phone numbers, then they found a way to bury, to shadow ban millions of people's concerns about many different things that created a narrative, an opposing narrative than what Washington elites or the DOD elites or the FBI elites or whoever wanted. Whoever the DOD is serving, these foreign and domestic enemies. People that are not concerned about the Constitution and our rights, not concerned about victims' rights, not concerned about the service members that are being brutally murdered, that are being, their health care is dangerous or malpracticed, right? So they're not caring about that. They're not letting those narratives go out. And this is happening in Santa Clara, California. And then, because of Team Find Richard Halliday, we get information about Major General Clem Coward. And I don't know how, see, the thing is in May, when we did trace these, we gave this all to the authorities. We gave this to the FBI and to Washington, D.C. and the DOD and the generals. And we gave it all because this was so shocking. And you're going to be shocked. And the DOD is in close relationship with NATO. You know that the narrative is pro-NATO, even though most of NATO didn't pay their way. We're paying for NATO. And if you say that, you're not saying the right narrative, and you're going to be buried, and you're going to be shadow banned, and you're going to be a victim of the weaponization of those 7 samurai that forgot about, and I don't want to say the 7 samurai because they were really great, but those the feudal system, the where it got corrupt, are corrupt DOD right now who forgot what their duty is. Okay? And yeah, they didn't do anything. It has been crickets. They totally ignored us. We haven't gotten one response, just like we haven't gotten one response from Veronica Escobar. And you have these other people. I was looking through some screenshots. They're so concerned about Veronica Escobar. She hasn't even contacted us since 2020. And don't be concerned about her. She's in her cushy, secured office. She gets everything paid for. Don't worry. She didn't care about the service members. She doesn't care about the children, the 20,000 children that are unaccounted for at the emergency intake center right there at Fort Bliss. She doesn't care about across the border in Juarez, Mexico. You have 125 deaths and children deaths and everything just in the last month of March. I mean, and that's not abnormal. The last 3 months, it's like an average of 110 deaths a month. She doesn't care about the Mexican population in the Siamese twin sister of El Paso and their safety. And a lot of people in El Paso have family that are across the border, that their lives are put at risk. She doesn't care about that. Because you see, if the United States sneezes, they have pneumonia. You got to get your act together here. But there's no love. There's no good Samaritan. There's no rule of law. There's no let me do my duty. Let me make this city so great that we can bless Mexico, that we can bless Texas, that we can bless New Mexico, everything that borders us, that we can be a blessing. You know, it's like yeast in dough. You know, you put the yeast in the flour and you give it like a little bit of sugar and you keep it warm and it just travels and it blesses. I mean, there's nothing better. Sorry, every bit of my extra weight comes from a good piece of bread. I love a good piece of bread, right? Who doesn't love a good piece of bread with some butter on it, right? Some real butter, not fake butter, real butter. So, you know, yeah, she has no interest in blessing. And she has not done her duty, and she should be arrested. And she has connections with the DOD. She has connections with the El Paso Police Department that has many complaints, that even Leilani Hart, this is on record, that I'm sure she knows. Because if she was concerned about Find Richard Halliday and she was talking to Jeff Downey and she knows about the father-in-law, she never even contacted us with the father-in-law. That, you know, the FBI may be hiding the remains of our son that they found in Juarez, Mexico. We still don't have an answer to that question. Is the FBI hiding the remains of our son? You would think that they would have a press conference and say, everybody, Find Richard Halliday is concerned that the FBI is hiding the remains of Richard Halliday. We are not hiding the remains of Richard Halliday. But they have not done that. They have not done that. And Veronica Escobar, who has power that way, has not done that. And she sits on the what is that called? The House Arms Committee. She sits on that committee. And I am not going to, when someone is bringing forth a lead, and that lead is a dangerous lead, and we have months and months of putting us in danger, and it is at her hands, as well as Bill Hicks' hands, as well as Gregory McDonald, as well as Jaime Esparza, as well as Jeff Downey, and as well as the whole DOD, all of those generals with, that are supposed to be keeping us secure and safe, and they can't even do that, and they can't even keep Richard secure, and he went missing out of his barracks room, supposed to be a secure place, out of Fort Bliss, supposed to be secure. So how are they going to keep anything secure if they can't even keep a barrack secure? We had Austin Hawke being totally slaughtered in the barracks. We had Vanessa Guillen being totally bludgeoned to death in the arm room. That's where the weapons are. And, we have this bad weapon sales. We even have soldiers being caught selling weapons. Y'all, we have to get back our DOD, or we have to totally retrench it, because we need a defense, but we don't need it to get corrupt to this level that they are taking trillions of dollars from us to serve a foreign and domestic enemy, and to weaponize itself against us. We're the laughing stock. And so, when I got Clem Coward's phone is kind of connected, it seems like it, y'all, to Santa Clara, California. What the heck is that? Is that a coincidence? Because he absolutely was Richard's commander, was First Lieutenant Hart's commander, was Leilani Hart's commander. What's going on that we have a 2-star general involved in this? And we don't get answers. And of course we're suspicious. Look at what's going on. And it is not crazy for us to be suspicious. We have been told to be the investigators because we were told to get the leads. If we were told to bring in the leads, they were telling us, you're the appointed investigator. Not in so many words, but if they're telling us to get leads and bring them leads, they're appointing us the investigator. And so part of being an investigator is to be suspicious, is to ask questions, is to request answers. And we haven't gotten those. We can't even get the name of the canine that supposedly tried to sniff for Richard. Okay? Because there's no human, it's very difficult to get a dog that sniffs for human remains. Because dogs, these trained canines, they train for essentially one thing. Okay, they either sniff drugs, and then you have another dog that sniffs for money. Then you have another dog that sniffs for explosives. Then you have another dog that will sniff for live humans. Then you have another dog that will sniff for... they had to destroy a lot of these marijuana sniffing dogs because when they legalized marijuana, what were they good? They were so expensive. They don't tell you about that. We had to find all this out when the question was, what kind of dog was this canine? What was the name of this canine? Thank you to Delirious, who gets, she gets bad-mouthed all the time, but she's the one that said, what kind of dog was that sniffed for Richard? Was that a human remain? What name was that dog? We can't even... Who was the trainer? Who was the handler? So thank you so much, Delirious, because that was another pivotal moment in this case to show that this is a botched investigation, that they've been colluding and conspiring to cover up what happened to Richard, our son. And starting in, remember, January 2022, we get all of this, that they have all this information since the 22nd of July 2020. So 2 years later, or a year and a half later, January of 2022, we get this information that has developed now because of boots on the ground. And we trace these phone numbers, and I'm going to show you the second one that we traced. Let's see what I got here. Here's a picture of the area. These are the red little dots are NATO bases. That now, I don't know if they're active. I don't know all this. I know Holman Naval Base. I'm just saying what Google Maps gave me when I put in NATO Kaserne, because that's what they're called in German. That's what they're called in Denmark. They're called Kaserne, which means base or a post. So you have the Varde Kaserne. And because I spent most of my life overseas, I know these things. God prepared me for this moment. And I'm looking for this. And this area right here, this Holstenbro Kaserne, is right near the ping where the trace led. And also the trace led to, of course, Copenhagen, which is where our American embassy is. And I even was showing that just for a bonus, let me see if I can even do this. I think it's so cool. Yeah, let me see if I can display this. Okay, so here is Holstebro. I'm saying it very wrong. And the ping came from this Rathaus. If I can find it real quick. Let me see. But I know that the base is right here at this road. Right here. This is the base. We can even go down and see it. Just the entrance. Oh, I'm at the wrong place. See, if I don't put those little marks there. I don't put the little marks. Is that there? Let's see. I need to make sure I get the right place. I don't have the right place, y'all. I thought it was there because there was a panza, which means, let me go way out. Yeah, it should be right here. There it is. Yeah, I'm in the right spot now. So this is the military base right here. And it's NATO. And Panzer means tank. So, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a coincidence. I know that it needs to be answered. Why were we getting vulgar, intimidating, vile messages for months on our phone? And it leads to Denmark, NATO. What's going on there? Is this a huge conspiracy? Do we have to worry about our health? Is this so about our lives, about our safety? is what Richard was reporting, whatever happened to Richard, is it so bad? Is it true that they chopped him up? I mean, can you imagine everything that we have gone through and people go, well, how can you say these things? This is what was being said to us for months. Okay? Um and yeah, it's very disturbing why it would come from this area, and we have not gotten an answer. Okay? And I think yeah, if I find the church, I know it was right by the church. But anyway, this area here in Copenhagen, so that would be this area over here, was what we were looking at. Okay? This area right in here is where the base is. And then there's lots more over, all around, and of course with the Navy. And it's interesting that, okay, so here's part of the Star Fort. That's how I find things, because I know that Copenhagen was this huge star fort. And if you know anything about star forts, just type it in and go to images, and you will get, these are star forts, and they're all over the country. Like Paris was a star fort, Berlin was a star fort, Copenhagen was a star fort, London is a star fort. So you have, this will help you, even the island where our Statue of Liberty is on is a star fort. All up and down our eastern coastline are star forts. So it's very, very interesting. You have star forts in Japan. You have star forts all over the world. And people, it's just, if you're into architecture like I am, if you're into alternative energy, alternative health, then these star forts are just really, really amazing to look at. And so, of course, we have Copenhagen. You can just look for the star fort. Let me see if I should turn it this way. Anyway, and you can come in here. You can see the star fort there, the old relics of it. And here's a small star fort in the middle. Our embassy is real close. It's right in here. I think it's right in here. Our embassy is. But there is a base right where the star fort is. And that's why those are really good. Once you see it, you can find it easily on these Google Earth and everything. But that's where the second number. So we have these first numbers coming out of Santa Clara, California. You have the second numbers coming out of Denmark, Copenhagen, and also up here where the NATO base is. And we would like to know. We have 2 more locations that I'm going to share with you in the next couple of days. Hold on to your seats, because it's so when you know that they knew that they had El Paso police complaints, when they had all a CID and an FBI file on the 22nd of July 2020, the day before Richard even went missing. And they weren't even telling us that Richard made CPS complaints, that they weren't even telling us that Richard handed in sex videos, that, that the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday. We had to find out all of this information through others, through Team Find Richard Halliday. None of our officials. So what were they doing? They have these huge staffs, an endless purse, air-conditioned offices. They're secure, and yet they are not doing their job. And we'd like to know why. And that's why when the office of the IG finally sent us a official response to everything that we have just been sending in, my husband said it's about time. It's about time, right? Let's see if they do anything, because they said they were going to fully look into it. So we'll see. But it's just one failed agency after the other, one failed program after the other. And we're not talking about $100 here and 1,000. We're talking about trillions of dollars that we could be using to help our infrastructure, to help develop our country into the future, and to help us have clean water. Because if they care about our health so much, why don't we have the most crystal clean water ever, that we would be the envy of the whole world because of our beautiful water? But we don't have it. For trillions of dollars in debt, we should have the most crystal clean water for every person. And if everybody is drinking and using and washing with crystal clean, very cheap water, in Ireland it's free. If you're using that kind of water, I'm going to tell you, our health would be so much better, and we'd probably be thinner. Yeah. Okay, so what else do I want to talk about? I want to get back to of course, here is the Santa Clara, California connections, which was shocking. Here is the update. There seems to be some confusion that we don't have boots on the ground, but we do have boots on the ground. Okay? And so that is very important. And we still have a $150,000 reward for information leading to finding Richard. So we wouldn't be getting an official response from the Office of the Inspector General if we didn't have new information from boots on the ground. We just had the notary public call us. That's boots on the ground there. Okay? We wouldn't have that connection without that. So that's very, very important. The other thing that's important is this whole Veronica Escobar thing. Listen to this. You got to listen to this.
I agree with Mrs. Halliday that there needs to be an independent outside third party. Together we're going to look into what we need to do in order to involve the FBI.
Congresswoman Veronica Escobar.
So she says together. Okay. Never heard from her. I did hear from her.
I agree with Mrs.
The day after, I heard from her office. Okay, I should say that. From her, she doesn't work for her anymore. But what was her name? I know her name. I'll have to look it up. But anyway, saying that they didn't realize that Rob would do so well on that hike, that very dangerous hike. And she proceeded to tell us that they're the ones that brought forth that lead, the lead up to McKilligan. That's not me saying that. That's her office saying that. That these two women that go, it's their personal. See, they have their nice offices, their air-conditioned offices, their secure offices, their wonderful pay, their security into the future with their pensions. They have it all, okay? And they have then personal guides, personal physical fitness guides that help them hike and do all these things for hours, just like, golfers and the Rod and Gun Club and all of that, which is all great, but you need to do your duty. And these were their guides. And there was a lot of weird things going on with that. And so Rob went up there. and he feared for his life 3 times. It was a very, very tough uphill, up a cliff climb. And he's such a hunk. He did it. He's such a hunk. But we do a lot of walking. We do a lot of physical activity, and so he was prepared. And that office called. They didn't know that about us. And my husband, yeah, he's such a hunk. He did well on that hike, and he's not a spring chicken, but he still did well on that hike. And they called and said, we didn't know he would do so well. What were they expecting? I don't know if that was intimidation. I don't know if that was applauding what he did. But I got a creepy, creepy feeling. And I have to tell y'all, I got a creepy feeling. It was not a good feeling. And I think my creepy feeling was right, because we haven't heard from them since. And even our letter, whether she likes us or not, it's her duty to El Paso. It's her duty to Fort Bliss. It's her duty as a public servant to respond to us and say, at least acknowledge that she received our inquiry. Thank you so much. I received your inquiry. What's so hard about that as a public servant? And so I just wanted to definitely clarify that, because she is a public servant. We also have this.
I need somebody help, not just anybody help. I need someone help.
Okay, so you can go and watch this. It is asking for a letter, and it's giving the address to Michael Horowitz's office. You can send a letter for the 1,000 days, and then pray, because we are going to have a vigil. We're going to have a prayer line, and we'll be announcing those. But because we're afraid for our safety, because we have found out that there's so much colluding and conspiring and weaponization of our very own against us, our very own public servants against us, that so we'll be announcing it shortly. But we don't want to endanger maybe Bill Hicks will contact us. Maybe Jeff Downey will offer us some security. So absolutely. Then we have this one about the 20,000 missing children, the accounted for children from the emergency intake center there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, which is a real concern, because in Richard's case, this is about child trafficking. This is about child pornography. And I want to make it clear that all pornography is about child trafficking. Okay? All pornography is a support for child trafficking. And if you want to know more, I'll be glad to expound on that. There's my grandbaby. There's my grandbaby. Anyway, sorry. I had that picture up, and I thought, oh man, we, the best medicine is our family, and my friend told me 2 days ago that when you don't bow to the hat, when you don't bow to the foreign and domestic enemies and their will, that they'll attack you. They'll attack your family. They'll try to get your family. And in Richard's case, his family, of course, were us. But when you're in the military and you're so far away from home, your unit is supposed to be your family. The Army is supposed to be your family. That's why it's called Army of One. Okay? and they let him down. They divided the family, and they divided it even through the military police. Anthony Swafford made that very clear to us. He's a military police soldier there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, and he went on social media trying to persuade others from not helping us, not passing out flyers to find Richard Halliday. This is a military police soldier on Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas in 2020, and he's trying to dissuade people from helping us, right? And so there was a reaching out, and he was even angry with us. And we're like, why are you even angry with us? We're just looking for our missing son. Wouldn't you want to look for your son or daughter if they went missing? Wouldn't you want to look for them? And why are you upset? Why do you have an attitude with us? And so a team found Richard Halliday, who was trying to be dissuaded to hand out flyers, was like, what's your problem? He's a missing soldier. And he was saying that Richard had a bad character. And she's like, what are you talking about? Where'd you hear that from? And he said his guard mount. Guard mount is the change of shift. It's from a senior leader, senior officer. It could be a senior NCO. It can be a senior officer that stands at the change of shift for the police, for the military police, and gives them the updates, gives them the current events. And so who ordered this? This is an arrest. These people need to be arrested. This is so evil. This is so criminal that they go and stand at a military police guard mount. And Anthony Swafford, we have $150,000 of information, of money for information, credible information leading to finding Richard. This is an important piece of information. If you have any love for your children, any love for your country, any love for family, then you will absolutely call us and tell us who this senior leader was that unjustly, groundlessly smeared Richard's character when he needed you the most, when he needed the family of the military the most, to persuade you, to convince you to not do your duty as a military police soldier, to not help your fellow service member. It is disgusting. It is so criminal. It's so anti-esprit de corps. And to see the first lieutenants and the captains that are from our beautiful military West Point, who now is so infiltrated with serving foreign and domestic enemies, they have forgotten Joseph. They have forgotten the Constitution. They have forgotten what it took to create this country, to make this country, to grow this country. And to see them respond in the like manner as Anthony Swafford. To see First Lieutenant Brown respond, to see Nick Brown Bell respond, to see Captain Park respond, to see First Sergeant Jay Pollan respond, to see First Sergeant Michael Ruggiero not respond but use his wife. The same thing with SFC Arona, using his wife. And to see these many more responding with the lack of esprit de corps when Richard needed them the most. And if you had any beef against Richard, because, you're calling him a POS, well, then find him first. Find him first. But I think that he was in a Vanity Fair that was hurting children. We know that because he made child protective service complaints. He wasn't going to stand there and let children be sexually abused, sexually taken advantage of, to make porn videos out of, so that it could be sold and make somebody money that they could go eat steak with, that they could go play golf with, that they could go play a hooker with. Because remember what Richard said. Richard said, I'd rather burn my money than spend it on whores and blow. To see the response of Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe, a 3-star general, to see the response of the non-response or the crazy response or the absolute insanity that's coming out of our 44 4-star generals, to see the absolute insanity coming out of the Attorney General's office, to see the insanity coming out of the Inspector General's office, to see the insanity coming out of the FBI and not doing anything, and to see the insanity of Veronica Escobar's office. And then to say, well, we can, mother of a missing soldier, you need to take them walking all over you, dirting all over you. You need to take that. You can't say anything and then expect them to do their duty as a public servant. You're not allowed to say anything. You're not allowed to give them a tongue lashing. Well, I think that's what they said to Vanessa Guillen's mother. But our public servants need a tongue lashing. A lot of them need to be investigated, to be audited, to be arrested. I mean, if we have a former president being arrested for nothing, then what about this kind of collusion and conspiracy to hide the remains of the very first CONUS Deaths One missing soldier in United States Army history under the Vanessa Guillen new absent soldier flowchart, where Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe said our failures drove us to make those changes, right? No, it was exposure of those failures that led you to make those changes. And they should be held accountable. We need accountability for all of this, because now we're putting in harm's way, because we're finding out that the traces of our vile and vulgar, even insulting, even threatening phone messages comes from very questionable places that would be part of a government network of collusion and conspiracy that we pay for. And they've weaponized it against us. And now we have to turn to the very people that we have hurt badly, and that's Mexico. We have hurt Mexico badly with not securing our border. They have been infiltrated. People coming over the border, I don't think most of them are Mexicans. So they're the ones that are getting killed right now, 125 a month, just in Juarez, Mexico, because of this absolute insanity with the border. The lack of security. And I feel humble that it is the Mexican government, Mexican agencies that right now are working together to try to help find Richard Halliday, to help us find our son. And I'm very humble and I'm very grateful. And I'm very sad at the same time that we have trillion-dollar agencies and they're so corrupt. They're so selfish. They've forgotten Joseph. They've forgotten Moses. They've forgotten our Constitution. They've forgotten their people. They've forgotten their land. And I'm very sad at that. And I think that I hope many, many, many of you, at least 1,000 of you, will write letters to the Inspector General, Mr. Horowitz. You can find all the information there on Find Richard Halliday. You can find it on Twitter. You can find it on Telegram. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it and write him a letter asking him to inspect the investigation, the botched investigation of Find Richard Halliday. Because we're going to have elections. And this is just needs to be done. When they knew on the 22nd of July, 2020, that there were problems in the CID and that it involved Richard, they should have absolutely asked for a third, the FBI, Jeff Downey, should have come in and taken charge of this whole investigation and not let the very, and get this, the El Paso police report against Leilani Hart and Tavita Nusa. Now, you can correct me. This is just boots on the ground information. Is that Leilani Hart was bragging, and this person was very concerned with this narrative or this claim, because Leilani Hart was claiming that she had control over the CID right there at Fort Bliss. Now, if that's true, and we need Inspector General Horowitz to inspect this botched investigation and see if that's true, and she had her hands inside the CID right there at Fort Bliss, and Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe knew about it, and the CID knew about it, and Jeff Downey of the FBI knew about it, and Bill Hicks knew about it, and Jaime Esparza knew about it, and Greg McDonald knew about it. They all knew about it, with Veronica Escobar knowing about this, and everybody knows about this, and they're conspiring together. Well, we have a big problem, because is the FBI hiding the remains of our son, Richard Halliday, just so they could cover up their careers, secure their lives, leave us unsecured, leave us subjected to vile and vulgar messages for months, and take away, we've been doing this for 900 and 50 days. Short of, and they've been letting us do that, when all along they knew everything, telling us to bring them leads when they knew everything, giving us false leads when they knew everything, appointing asymmetric warfare tactics and military operations like FBI informants and military our liaison. We've had even a person involved in this case that committed suicide. This is not a game. And this corruption is just mind-boggling. It is a botched investigation, and who is going to finally do the right thing? That's our question. So I'll take questions right now. Okay, let me turn this all the way down. Thank you, Anna. I hope I'm saying your name right. And Grace, thank you. And Anicia, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you, Annie. Thank you so much. Um, okay, everyone. I know it's getting close to Sunday, right? We're getting well. So thank you. Thank you for sharing. I should turn this off. Did I have something else here I wanted to show you? Oh yeah, this right here. I'll leave this on. This is that map. It caused some problems because these are orphanages here. This is this lead that we got. And it needs to be investigated. This whole investigation is botched, and this needs to be investigated because this is where Richard's body remains, maybe parts of his remains are, and we did an after action. The after action got nothing. Well, there's a story behind that too, and I'll probably tell you that tomorrow. But I think this is important. Oh, this is another thing that came up. This is the month of the military child. Okay? And they have a child wearing a military uniform. Right now I cry with that because of what they do to children. Where are the children? And I answered them with my response to see if they would censor that. If they would censor that, you know. This is just, you can go to this Telegram, and you'll see what other things that are being put up there. But thank you so much, everyone, and have a beautiful Sunday. Yeah, we're coming up to Holy Week, and I'm looking really forward to it, and I'll tell you why I'm looking really forward to it tomorrow. So, or day after that. So thank you so much. God bless you, and pray for us. Pray for our safety and security, since we have been left defenseless and also without recourse except for coming on live. Okay, thank you so much. God bless you.